Hi folks, remember we had an issue with the Ghost White Toner transfers with the halo around the edge? Well, I've had some feedback from Ghost White Toners now, and let's also compare them to some existing Inkjet printed t-shirts that I've had here for quite a few years. So let's have a look at them. Right, well you may remember the issue that I was having with the toner of the Ghost White Toner images, and I had a halo effect, which, let me just show you again if you don't remember it. Well, I don't know whether you can see around the edge there, around that image there, on the actual transfer paper itself, you can see that sort of halo effect there. Now that is a thing that was actually coming out on the image as well when it was transferred to the t-shirt. Now, when I initially spoke to the Ghost White Toner people, they said they'd only experienced it once out of all the times that they've been using these papers and testing these papers out. And I did it again and I still had an issue with it. And then they went back and done some more testing, and apparently they was able to recreate the exact same thing that I was actually experiencing. And not only that, in the comment section below of them videos, there were also other people who had experienced the same thing as well. So it was a possible problem which needed to be overcome. And I've actually heard back from the Ghost White Toner people now, and they said they've done a few tests, and it seems to be the reason why that this was happening was due to high ambient temperature. Now, they done a test and sent me a little video showing how they'd recreated it, and the temperature, as you know, over this last summer had been very, very warm, and as a result of that, the test that they done in the warm environment with the printer that I was using is the same printer that they use, which is the HP Colour LaserJet Pro M252DW, or D, whatever one you have. And that was producing that halo effect, which is obviously something which you needed to know the reason for it happening. So that was the reason. It was ambient temperature. It seemed that the temperature over 28 degrees C, for example, that's when the problem sort of arises. So if you're in a hot ambient environment and you're using that printer with these toner papers, you may have that same issue. But below that, everything else works fine. Let's say at normal room temperature, which is about 20 to 21 degrees centigrade, you shouldn't experience that problem, and the images come out crisp as they should do on these transfer papers. These transfer papers, by the way, from the Ghost White Toner people, I've had a few people ask whether or not they are very similar to the Forever papers from the Forever transfer paper people, and I actually asked the chap from the Ghost White Toner people, and he said yes, that he could confirm that they are from Forever. So the actual dark transfer, the clear ones, as you can see here, these are actually from the Forever people, so that answers that question. So I've also done a few wash tests, as you can see here. Let me show you these. I've not pressed them at all. They've come out of the washing machines, and been through it a few times now. Let me show you the actual images. I've got both images here. I've got one with the halo effect around it, which I've done initially in the first video, and the other one which didn't have that. So let me just show you these. Right, well that was the halo effect there, as you can probably see there, and that was quite an issue. And it was definitely wanted investigating, and as I say, that was what I was coming up with, and they've put that down to temperature, external ambient air temperature above 27 or so degrees. Around the 20 degrees or 21 degree room temperature, that doesn't happen, so just something to be aware of. As you can see, that disappeared, and I've got the white line there, but that was due to me not knowing how to cut out and silhouette and trace a silhouette, for example. But again, I've put a tutorial on YouTube on how I got over that issue. So that's that. But as you can see, they fared pretty well. As I say, these have been through probably about 3 to 4 times now, the transfer papers. And as I say, the beauty of these over the standard transfer papers that I normally use is that you don't have to use a cutter to cut these out. These are self-weeding papers, so there's no cutter. There's no need for a silhouette cameo, for example. But the other issue is that if you're using transfers in big blocks like this, for example, it can feel a bit stiff still, and as you can probably hear the texture there. So it's ideal to use them in thinner graphics. Let me show you what I mean. Now don't forget, these are the actual same papers virtually as the Forever papers. This is the Forever paper transfer, again, which has been through the washing machine. And if you feel the centre of this image, I don't know whether you can actually hear that. That's very similar to the Forever, the Ghost White toner papers, if the images are a lot sort of speckled and not in big blocks of colour, then that can actually feel exactly like a screen transfer, like there, for example. You can barely fill them. So if you're going to be using these transfers, best to use them in a smaller graphic and not in the big block, and that's very much the same as the t-shirt transfers which I use. And as you probably know, I use a dark t-shirt transfer which I've been using for the past 13 years, and I was lucky enough, we've got a relative who likes Superman, and every Christmas he asks for a Superman t-shirt, and we do them with our transfer vinyls. And let me just put these to the side for a minute and I'll show you exactly how the longevity of these t-shirts have lasted. Right, so these come from a relative who wants us to put new transfers on them, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 transfers here, which indicates 5 years of t-shirt transfers using the inkjet transfers that I use in my basic inkjet printer. Nothing to do with laser printer these have to be contour cutted out. So I'm just going to give them a quick press because they're all wrinkled, and I'll show you the quality compared to the Ghost White toner, and you can make up your own decision. So let me just give these a quick press and I'll be back in a minute. Right, okay, then these are, or this represents 5 years of t-shirt printing using the inkjet printing transfer papers that I've used for the past 13 years. And this is an ideal opportunity for you to get some sort of measure of what people say, for example, in forums or whatever, that inkjet transfer papers are no good. Well, a lot of them aren't any good because a lot of them ain't designed for longevity. They're learned for iron on, go to an event, and then it's a throwaway sort of a item. These are slightly different because they're got to be used with a heat press, and these are also half the price of the LaserJet transfer papers, which you know that we've got here. So just something else to be aware of. Right, now I've tried to lay these down in order of how old they are, and the reason how I can tell that is because back then we were using a different type of t-shirt, so I know that these ones are definitely the oldest. And then as we progress, he loses a bit of weight as well. He's gone from an XL down to an L, so I know the longevity of each of the t-shirts. So let's have a look first of all and see. First of all, these are all printed with dye-based inks. They're all printed on exactly the same transfer paper, the ones that I use and recommend in my training DVDs. And there is no special treatment. They've all been washed on a cool wash. A couple of times they've gone through a hot wash and we've had to get over something. I'll show you that in a minute though. But these, when I say a cool wash, I mean 40 degrees C and below. The lady or the woman who actually washes these sticks to that and washes at 40 degrees and below, and she has done. A couple of times she's washed them at hotter temperatures and we've got them back, like this one for example, and we've had to layer another vinyl on top just because he still loves the t-shirt. So let me show you these close up. These are inkjet dye-based ink printed transfers from 1 year to 5 years. So let's have a look at these. Right, this is the latest one that we've done. We've done this last year, I think it was, and we're due to do another one this year. Now, again, these have been contour cut with the craft cutter, which we use. This is the Silhouette Cameo. And although there's a few little marks on it, there's no degradation of the transfer. And as you know, coloured transfer papers for coloured t-shirts do tend to be a bit thicker. And that's just why we normally say don't have big blocks of colour like this. If you're going to be doing a transfer on a dark t-shirt, use sort of a more descriptive rather than big blocks of transfer paper. But as you can see, the colours are fantastic. There's no cracking or peeling whatsoever there. And that was done last year. 2 years ago, this one. Now, I don't know what happened here, whether she's got bleach in the wash or whatever, but there's something which has happened here on this transfer, although the actual transfer itself is, again, no peeling or cracking, and the colours are still very, very vivid. And don't forget, this is year 2. So moving over to year 3, again, there's been an issue. I don't know what these marks are. That's but as you can see from the lines on the images, there's been really no bleeding or whatever of the colour, and the colour definition is, as you can see, pretty constant all the way from year 1 to year 3. So there's no degradation there at all in colour. So from year 1, as you can see, I'll pan across to year 3, there's no degradation in the colour. This is year 4, and as you can see, we've changed our t-shirt. This was a larger neck t-shirt, so I know these two are definitely the oldest t-shirts. And year 4, if we look at the colour, again, there's no bleeding of the colour. Again, these have been washed at 40 degrees and below, but there are just some signs of maybe folding or crease lines, for example, which you can possibly see there, although it's not cracked in any way. So colour definition is definitely still great, and this is after a 4-year transfer. Now the longest one we've got, and this is the oldest t-shirt, this is 5 years. Now when I mentioned earlier on about she put it on a hot wash and it went through a 60 or 70 degree cycle, this actually got 2 transfer papers on it. This one, see the black line there, that's the one we've laid on top, and the one underneath is the one which had cracked a little bit and they had some more white lines on it, as you can see there. So we got it back and she asked us just to put another transfer on top of it, which we did. But as you can probably see there, it's puckered up in a little bit of places. The newer transfer which we done, I can't remember when we actually done this now, but that's just laying a transfer on a transfer. Not really a good idea, but we did it to overcome the problem, just to giving me sort of his t-shirt. And as you can see, this was the first t-shirt that we done for him sort of 5 years ago, and she accidentally put it on the hot wash. But as you can see, if you look at underneath, although the colour's slightly lighter than the rest, because don't forget this has been on a hot wash, this one, it's still very bold and very crisp underneath, although it may have cracked underneath due to it being put on a hot wash. But the year after that, as I said to you, the 4-year one, there's not much difference in that bottom colour. Forget the top one there, because that was an overlay. That yellow is a lot brighter than this yellow because that was put on afterwards. But laying these transfers on top of each other doesn't really work. So you can see that there with the puckering up there underneath. So, but as you can see there, if I'll just pan across the whole lot of them, year 5, 5-year transfer, 4-year transfer, 3-year transfer, 2-year transfer, last year transfer. All the colours are pretty much saved, and there's no real degradation of the colour there. So, I mean, I haven't got 5 years worth of transfers with the Ghost White toner. And don't forget, when you buy the Ghost White toner system, you're going to need a laser printer for this stuff. You're going to need to have the white toner cartridge as well, which when you buy the kit, you buy it in a kit form. You can buy the cartridges individually. You're going to basically have to change everything that you do. And also you're going to be paying out a lot more money for the let's say, for example, I had to fill up the toners on this laser printer. I think they work out £50 to £70 each toner. It might even be more. And the white toner is about £150. The benefit of it is you don't need to weed them out and cut using a silhouette cameo. You're not limited for printing like speckly images, stuff like this, for example. I did print, as you can see, this is one I did as well. This is the Ghost White toner. I didn't get the registration marks correct because all the white is showing through there. But as you can see, when you use smaller type prints, they become a lot softer. And there's nowhere near the heaviness that you get with the Ghost White toners when you're using more detailed, smaller blocks of the colour, as opposed to this one, which is a solid block of colour, and you do get that same feel that you get with the other t-shirt transfers that I use. But as I say, these are a lot cheaper. That you can use your basic home printer, and as I say, I use the cheapest dye-based inks. I've got a CISS system, which is a bulk ink system. So for me to print thousands of t-shirts doesn't cost me hardly nothing at all in ink, because I get the cheapest inks. I buy 6 colours for about £10 here in the UK. It's up to you to work out what your budget's going to be. And as I say, there is an issue which you need to overcome if you're working in a hot environment where you could get that halo effect. Just something to watch out for. I haven't got a longevity. These have been washed 3 or 4 times. The colours have held up okay. They seem okay, but they're nowhere near as vivid as my inkjet printer. on these basic t-shirts, which I've got here for over 5 years. Anyway, I hope that was of some use to you. It's up to you, obviously, to make up your own mind what system could probably work for you. I haven't found a system yet that can beat these transfer papers that I use for longevity, cheapness, and ease of use, although you have to have a silhouette cameo or a craft cutter to cut the images out, and you have got limitations where you can't do intricate items like this because you have to cut every individual item out. So depending on what type of images you're going for, if you're looking for blocks of colour with quite simple outlines, you may want to go for something like this, which is cheaper to run. Or if you're going for intricate things like this, for example, if you want to create images like that, you could never cut that out on a dark t-shirt transfer. But with the no-weed transfer papers from the ghost people, the ghost toner peoples, you can design the most complex image, something like that, for example, and you can weed it out without needing a craft cutter. Anyway, I hope that was of some use to you there. These are t-shirt transfers, which I use. The other ones, as you know, was a ghost white toner. There was an issue, and it's down to temperature. So if you're getting that halo effect around your image on your laser transfer from the ghost white toner people, then it's down to temperature. Keep your ambient temperature under control, under 27 degrees if possible, centigrade. Thanks very much. See you in the next video. Until then, bye for now.